This is a short demonstration of how to localize a C# application in Visual Studio 2010 using the multi-language add-in. I've already started up Visual Studio and I've already opened the project. It's a very simple editor based on a text box control, a little like Windows Notepad, and it has three forms, which are a main form, an about box, and a splash screen. So let's dive straight in. You can start the add-in from the Tools menu, and it opens a window in Visual Studio. You can move it around and have it as a floating window or as a docked window. I usually prefer to have it docked at the bottom of the screen in a fairly wide format. You can even have it as a tab document, but I don't find that convenient. You can have multiple projects in your solution, but the add-in usually works with a single project, so the first thing to do is to select the project. At the top of the window is a drop-down list showing the projects in the solution, so we're going to open that list and select the project. Now we have to enter a couple of options. The first one is, what is the original language of the project? This project is in English, which is already selected, so I can click on Next to go on to the second option. This option is about how the add-in will handle strings in the program source code. You can find more information about this option in the online help. For now, I'm just going to stick with the default selection, which is Named Resources, and click on Finish. Now the add-in starts examining the project. This is a small project, so it doesn't take very long. Let's take a look at what it's done. Firstly, it's added a file to the project. The file is called simpleeditor_ml.xml, and this is the project database used by the add-in to store information about the project, including the translations. A lot more interesting are the tabs in the add-ins window, Controls and Source Code. Let's take a look at the Controls tab. The add-in has detected the strings in the user interface which require localization. It finds these by looking for properties which have the localizable attribute. If I click on a line, say here on btok.txt, you can see that the form is loaded into the designer window and the button is selected. The Source Code tab is a bit different. It shows strings which the add-in has detected in the program source code. Same thing here. If I click on a line, the file is opened in the editor and the line is highlighted. So here we have the text, version, and then 0 in curly brackets. Now if we want to localize this string, all we have to do is click on the checkbox in the grid. Now what the add-in does is it takes that text and turns it into a resource string. So now the original text has been replaced with the resource string simpleeditor.properties.resources.version_0. And this resource string has been added to the standard resource file resources.resx, which you can see in the Solution Explorer. Now one clever thing that Visual Studio does is that if you hold the mouse over the resource string, it shows a tooltip containing the original text. There we go. So although the text is no longer in the source file, you can still see the text via the tooltip. There are not very many texts in the source code, so I'm going to select them all one after another. I can do that by clicking in the grid here. I can also use multiple selection, and what I find quite useful is the space bar to select them. So we've got these ones here, and now I have two interesting ones which do not require translation. The best thing is if I could just tell the add-in that I don't want to see these strings again. So to do this, I click on the sun symbol here at the start of the line. Now firstly, that changes the sun into a moon, which means that we're going to hide that line. What it also does is modify the source code, and if we look at the line in the source, we can see that it has added the comment mlhide. So the next time the add-in reads this file, it will know that the string on this line does not need translation. And we'll hide this one here too. But to really hide them, I have to click on this toggle button on the toolbar, and then they're actually gone from the grid. We can do the same kind of thing on the Controls tab. This is a bit different because all of the strings are already selected, whereas on the Source Code tab, they were not selected. there are a couple of similar ones here which I know do not require translation. So I'm going to uncheck these ones, and then I can click on the sun symbols to hide them, and click on this one again on the toolbar to actually hide them. So we've done a bit of preparation, and now it's time to add another language. So I click on the plus symbol on the toolbar, and this brings up a dialog with a list of languages. At the bottom of this dialog, there are two checkboxes which you can use to select online translation. Now, depending on which language I click on, these two checkboxes will be enabled or not enabled. If one of them is enabled, that means we can use online translation for this language. In fact, the online translation service has to support both the original language and the new language to do an automatic translations. I'm going to choose a language which supports automatic translation, for example, Korean. And I'm going to select the option Get Translations from Microsoft Translator and click on OK. Now the add-in has done several things. What you can see is that it has added another column to the grid, and it has translated the texts into Korean automatically. Now these might be good translations, and they might not be. Probably they're lousy translations. What you're going to have to do is to export the text to an Excel file, give it to a translator, get them translated, and then import the translations back into the add-in. What you can also do is click in the grid and edit the text directly. But I can't do that because I don't know any Korean. But for now, we'll continue using the online translations. You may have seen a dialog pop up and do some stuff a minute ago. What it did was to set the localizable property of each form to true. This takes a little time because it has to load each form into a designer window, but we only have to do it once. So we're almost through. If you built the program and ran it on a Korean system, it would appear in Korean. What I like to do is to show a dialog at the startup to select the language. The add-in can do this automatically, and to do it, you use a command in this menu here. Come on, add language selection form to your project. This brings up a dialog showing what it has to do. If I click on add now, it does it. There we go, and let's close the dialog. So now, all we have to do is to build the project. Build succeeded, and run it. We can run it without the debugger. So it brings up a dialog, which the add-in has added to the project, where you can select the language. If I select Korean, then it starts the project, and well, I cannot tell you if it's a good translation, but that would be the about box. There you go, and there you go. I guess that's save. So there it is.